Lamed Hey, that is on our parsha, on Parshas Boy. V'agדת lebnech bayom ההוא lemor, you should relate, you should tell over to your son at that day, saying that day is going on the day of Pesach. For this, for the things that you see here on the Seder table, you see the Pesach, the Matzah, Mar, that's why Hashem took me out of Mitzrayim. Hine, the pasuk zelamedim, from this pasuk v'agדת lebnech we derive should mitzvah l'saper b'yitzias Mitzrayim ba'oisa alayla. That's a mitzvah to relate and tell over about going out of Mitzrayim at the night of Pesach, because it says v'agדת lebnech bayom ההוא, in that day, the day that Eden went out of Mitzrayim, that's the day when you have to relate the story of going out of Mitzrayim. The Haggadah, in a way that you're relating, you're telling it over, like it says, V'agדת. Until, according to the opinion of many codifiers, many poskim, echon meikri, hachilukim shmeisias Mitzrayim, b'leila pesach v'abishol kol hashana kula. What the main differences between the mitzvah of telling over and about going out of Mitzrayim the night of Pesach, in comparison to the rest of the year. We know that it's a mitzvah to mention going out of Mitzrayim every single day, both in the morning and by night. That's why we have Parshas Vayomer and Krishma, because it talks about Yitzias Mitzrayim. The difference is between the daily and the Pesach night is the obligation of relating the story of Yitzias Mitzrayim has to be in a way of telling over. The rest of the year it says mitzvah lahaskir Yitzias Mitzrayim. We mention, just like we actually find in Parshas Vayomer, it doesn't tell the whole story. It says, I am Hashem your God that took you out of the land of Mitzrayim. That's it. You're mentioning that you went out of Mitzrayim. You don't have to tell the whole story, what took place, and so on. The night of Pesach, there's a mitzvah to actually relate, v'hagדת, to tell over the story. Now, we also know that there are the four sons. We know about the four sons of the Haggadah, the wise son, the wicked son, the simple son, and the one that doesn't know how to ask. We derive this from different psukim in the Torah that speak about a child asking his father, based on what the content of the question is. We can determine, this is a wise son, and so on. But from our pasuk, the pasuk in this week's parsha where it says "V'agדת lebnech," it's not in response to a question. So from this, the Chazal derive about how you're supposed to respond to the fourth son, the one that doesn't know how to ask. V'hinei, 6 lines from the top of the page. The pasuk zelamedim. From this pasuk we derive that the obligation of relating and telling over about going out of Mitzrayim is not only when the son actually asks him. Like it says in a different pasuk, when your son will ask you, saying, and then you will tell him, also in our parsha, but that's a different pasuk. That the obligation of relating to your son, telling them the story of Yitzias Mitzrayim, even if the son did not ask him whatsoever, just like where it says v'agדת lebnech bayom ההוא, it's not in response to a question. So therefore, we have an obligation to relate and to tell over the story, even if we weren't questioned. Lost my place. 1 second. The Chazal bring down. It's also brought down in Rashi on the pasuk. At the pasuk, and you shall tell over to your son, is speaking about a child that doesn't know how to ask. The pasuk says, you shall tell to your son, meaning at psachloi, like we have in the Haggadah, you open up, you engage him, you start the conversation. Move on from this, understood. In the Magid, the main idea of the section of the Haggadah, it's called Magid, telling over, the Haggadah part of the Haggadah, V'achiv the Sipur B'Yetzias Mitzrayim B'Leil HaPesach, and the obligation of relating the story of going out of Mitzrayim the night of Pesach. Shalom de Mashakasa V'Gata Lebincha Bayom Ahuu, that we derive this from the Pasuk that says, you shall tell it to your son on that day. It's telling over to the son that doesn't know how to speak. So the fact that the Haggadah is called V'Gadat Lebincha, and the V'Gadat Lebincha is talking about the son that doesn't know how to ask. So from that we see that the main idea and the main mitzvah of relating and telling over the Haggadah is about the child that doesn't know how to ask. So the Rebbe asks, we need to understand, why do we make a main thing from the child that doesn't know how to ask, to such a degree that the name of the sefer that we use by the Seder is Haggadah. And Haggadah is called because it says V'Gadat Levincha, that was said about a son that doesn't know how to ask. The main idea of the Haggadah should have been for the wise son, especially from the expression of the usage of the language of the wise son's question that he asks. What are the ceremonial laws? What are the decrees? What are the laws that Hashem commanded you? Move on. It's understood. Not only does he recognize and differentiate and knows all the different things that we do on Pesach, he knows all of it. He also knows the differentiation between the three types of mitzvahs. Eidus, chukim, mishpatim. Eidus are ceremonial mitzvahs that mark a certain event. Chukim are super rational decrees. Mishpatim are logical, rational laws. He knows also the quality of Yidden. That's why he says, not ma ha'edus v'chuk mashpat mashtsiva Hashem Elokeinu, but Siva Hashem Elokeinu eschem. He appreciates what a Yid is. V'ashayla shaloim ma ha'edus goyim mashtsiva goyim eschem, and his question, what are the edus etc. that Hashem commanded you? Hirak ma yashayches v'akesher be'amitzli Yisrael. He wants to know. He's not asking what are the mitzvahs. He's smart enough. He knows what the mitzvahs are. He wants to know what's the connection between the mitzvahs and you, as the Maimer will explain. If so, we have to understand why is the main idea of Magid, the relating over of the Haggadah to the son that doesn't know how to ask? Till the entire name of Haggadah, it's called Haggadah because of the pasuk V'Gadat Lebincha, and the pasuk V'Gadat Lebincha in our parsha speaks about a child that doesn't know how to ask. Another question that Rebbe asks, 2 lines from the bottom of the page, it says, in that day, for the sake of this, in other words, what we're doing by the Seder. As soon as he says, for this sake, so this already tells you that it's already informed you we're talking about a specific time. Chazal derive, and we say this in the Haggadah, for the sake of this, I did not say that we have the obligation of relating the whole story of going out of Mitzrayim, only at the time that the matzah maror is lying before you, because otherwise we could have said by Yom Ahuu is any time in that day that we went out of Mitzrayim. By Bavur Zeb we go but the matzah maror, when he can point in it, then he can point with his finger to the matzah maror and say, for the sake of the matzah maror we're eating, that's why Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. So if so, if from the phrase Ba'avur Zeh we already know when we're talking about at the night of the Seder. V'lama Omer, so why does the pasuk say Bayom Ahuu, in that day? That'll happen in that day. V'agדת lebincha bayom ההוא, you shall tell him in that day. Yom she'ein mesuyam, a day that's not explicitly stated what it is. You're saying Ba'avur Zeh, that should be enough. Tell V'agדת lebincha Ba'avur Zeh, for this sake, for the amount of more that you see lying in front of you. That's why he took us out. We know already right away. That's talking about the night of Yetzias Mitzrayim. That's when we have to say it, by the night of the Seder. But as soon as you say Bayom ההוא, you're just throwing in a mystery over here, which seemingly is unnecessary. Second line from the top, another thing we need to understand, Mashat Tevis, B'tzeis Mitzrayim, Nemru B'siyam Me'inyan, La'achar Shenem Ba'avur Zeh, that the words, when I went out of Mitzrayim, says the conclusion of the whole topic after it says Ba'avur Zeh. It says that you should tell the son, you should tell him, your son, that day, for the sake of this, Hashem did for me when I went out of Mitzrayim. So when I went out of Mitzrayim is the conclusion of the idea. The main idea of V'agדת lebincha that this pasuk is about is telling over the story of going out of Mitzrayim. So the first thing that should have been mentioned in the V'agדת is when I went out of Mitzrayim. Why does it say when I went out of Mitzrayim at the conclusion? It could have said Ba'avur Zeh Hashem Mitzrayim, or some other type of thing which would put it earlier in the pasuk. Second paragraph on the second page. The idea behind this is, in Yedua, know Chassidus Mitzrayim, the novelty and uniqueness of the Geula of Mitzrayim, and in a similar vein, the novelty of the future redemption, Legabe HaGeulos Shel Shara Goliasu, in comparison to the Geulos of the redemptions of all the other exiles, Asher Begeulos Mitzrayim, Lo Nishar Shum Yehudi B'Mitzrayim. In the redemption from Mitzrayim, not a single Jew was left alive in Mitzrayim. Other redemptions, when they left Bavel, it's actually a majority of the Jews remained when they built the second base of Mikdash in Eretz Yisrael. The majority of the Jews from Bavel remained behind. And other situations, wherever there wasn't the complete leaving of all the Jews. Here, every Jew that was alive, true, we know about what happened by Makas Choshech, but every Jew that was alive left Mitzrayim. There was no living Jew left over Mitzrayim. So he says, V'hinei inyan zeh eina chidush kol kach, and this, in a similar vein, will be the future redemption. No living Jew will be left back in Golus. No Jew will be left behind. This is not such a novel thing. Since the time of the redemption already arrived. What sense does it make? Why would there be a reason for any Jew to remain, whoever he is, he should remain in exile? The main novelty, the main uniqueness of this, that every Jew left, not only all the Yidden themselves left the Golas, also all matters associated with the Yidden left Golas as well. Okay, the Yisig with moral pasuk. By Natzvos Mitzrayim, like it's brought down the Gemara on the pasuk, and they emptied out Mitzrayim. Shasu Hakim Mitzula Shem Badagim. They made it like the depth of the sea without fish. Hakim Mitzula Shem Badagim, and like a bird trap that has no grains in it. Similar to the teaching in the Baal Shem Tov and the Mizrich Magen and the Chazal, that Torah had great rachmanus, had great mercy upon Jewish money. In other words, the Torah did not want a Jew to spend money unnecessarily, to make a Jew spend money unnecessarily. And the Mizrich Magen, the Baal Shem Tov, explained why. What is the reason why the Torah is so careful with Jewish money and possessions? The reason why the Torah is very careful with Jewish money, because in the money of a Jew there's a spark of holiness that's associated with his neshama. That's the novelty of the redemption from Mitzrayim. Seemingly could have been that only all the Yidden themselves would be able to leave Golus. Would still remain in Mitzrayim, sparks that have a connection with Yidden. To be able to refine these sparks, Yidden would eventually have to return to Egypt, not under slavery, but in a way of freedom, to refine the sparks. And that was actually a similar vein how it was in other exiles, just like it was in the redemptions of other exiles. That even the sparks of those Jews that left exile and came to the Holy Land, those sparks still remained in exile. Therefore, it had to be afterwards. They went down. The Amoraim and Bavel described that they went down from Eretz Yisrael, from there to here, to Bavel, to Babylonia, and from here, Bavel, they went up to Eretz Yisrael. Why all this back and forth? Because to be able to complete the avodah of refining the sparks that remained in exile. That's the novelty in the redemption from Mitzrayim. That during the redemption they already refined all the sparks. Because of this reason, we were commanded 3 times not to return to Mitzrayim, because we already extracted all the sparks. And once we extracted all the sparks, there is no purpose for us to go back. Because a Yid traveling to a particular place, whether or not he's aware of it, whether or not he's conscious of it, it's on a mission of Hashem, which is, the mission is to affect over there some type of thing, and by doing that particular thing, whether making a bracha, etc., he elevates the sparks from that place. Therefore, we are commanded not to return to Mitzrayim, even in the means of freedom. Because all the sparks of holiness that were Mitzrayim were already refined, like it's explained in the writings of the Arizal. In a similar vein, about this completely leaving behind the Golus, will be in the final redemption of the final Golus. Like we say, like the days of you going out of the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. In other words, the Geula with Mashiach is going to be similar to the Geula from Mitzrayim. All the untoward things, unwanted things will become nullified. Like it says, the spirit of Tumah will remove from the land, and the sparks of holiness will become refined and leave exile. Like it says, you will be collected one by one, the children of Israel. The intention, this is not only the Yidden themselves, it also means the sparks of holiness. That also all the sparks will become refined and purified and be in a state of holiness. That's what it means. You'll be collected one by one. Normally, we're talking about the Jewish people, but he's also talking about the godly sparks as well. There will be no more sparks left in Golus. They will all be elevated, similar to what we did to all the sparks that were embedded in Mitzrayim. Top of the next page. Now, based on this idea of what we accomplished in Mitzrayim, we'll be able to understand why the main part of the Haggadah is to the son that is She'eni Yodei Elisha, that doesn't know how to ask. Pisa Yuvan Mashikerin Haggadah Disibu Tzivtzrayim Leila Pesach. Nilmud Makasa Levigat Levincha Shemedaber Ben She'eni Yodei Elisha. Why is the main idea of the Haggadah and relating the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim and the night of Pesach derived from the pasuk that speaks about talking to the son that doesn't know how to ask? Ki ba'sipri Yetzias Mitzrayim tzorch liyis mudgich asher ikar achidush begulas Mitzrayim hu birur vegulas gam haben shebedarga achi tachtoina. It has to be emphasized that the main novelty in the redemption of Mitzrayim is refining and redeeming also the son that's in the lowest level. That is the son that doesn't know how to ask. In the brackets, he discusses different ways of looking which of the four sons is considered the lowest. But the fact is that in Haggadah we speak about the one that doesn't know how to ask, the last, that indicates that that's the lowest level. Skip 4 lines down. That's at the end of the brackets, almost at the end of the line. 2 words from the end of the line. Through the redemption of the son that doesn't know how to ask, we affect also the redemption of the other children. Until we also affect the redemption of the wise son. That also the wise son needs redemption. How do we know that he needs redemption? Seemingly he's a wise son, he's above the fray. The very fact that he's in a state and situation that he has a question, that's why the wise son, it says about him, when your son will ask. That means, that's a proof that he needs redemption. Every question comes from the side of the klippa. It's brought down the Zohar and brought down and explained the Geras HaKodesh, because what is klippa? Klippa hides on the fruit. Klippa hides on the godliness. When you have a question, the idea is hidden and concealed. The Torah, the wisdom of Hashem, is concealed. So every question in its spiritual source has to do with concealment, which is the idea of klippa. So the fact that the wise son has a question, that means there's still something that he has to become redeemed from. But since the wise son is from the highest level, the highest type of the 4 sons, so his question as well reflects being a very high level. It's not a low level. It's still a high level, this question. Even more so, specifically because of his great quality and advantage, that's why he's asking this question. So on the one hand, the fact that he's asking a question, that means he needs a geula. On the other hand, this very thing that he's asking such a lofty question, that's an indicator and it's a gauge of the fact that he comes from a very high level. And now he's going to explain what he actually knows. And this comes to what we said before, that what's the connection between Eschem, Klal Yisrael, and mitzvahs, as he's about to explain. The Mekiv, my loss in Shalom Yisrael, since he knows the great quality of Jewish souls, he asked, what are these Eidos Chokim Mishpatim that Hashem commanded you, meaning La Metzricha Neshama LeMitzvahs Eidos Chokim Mishpatim Begashmis Davke. Why does the Neshama need mitzvahs of these 3 categories in the physical world? What's the benefit of a neshama that's so high to interact with the physical? Skip down 2 lines to the end of the brackets. That's the question. What are these Eidos Chokim Mishpatim that Hashem Elokeinu commanded you? The Mekivim Shamaду Barum Yisrael, since was spoken about over here is concerning the Yidden. Eschem Oika Girsai Son, or there's another version that says us. Since Jews are so high, why do they need to have physical mitzvahs? So why do you need physical mitzvahs to have the tziva Hashem Elokeinu tziva meloshen safsa v'chibur? Tziva is in the word, as we all know, mitzvahs in the word togetherness and joining. So again, Yidden are high on their own. Yidden have a nefesh elokis, as he's about to say. You need physical mitzvahs to join us with Hashem. From our nefesh elokis itself, we're joined to Hashem. Every single Jew has a godly soul. Why is it insufficient? The Torah mitzvahs, the way they're spiritually. This is similar to what Malachim complained. When Hashem wanted to give the Torah, so they said, Chamuda Genuza, this beloved treasure, you want to give it to flesh and blood, to the Yidden down here in this world? The meaning behind that challenge of the Malachim was, even if for whatever reason you have to give the Torah down here below to souls the way they are embedded in bodies, the mitzvahs should retain their spiritual state. In other words, Torah study, davening, not physical mitzvahs. Why do you want to give it to flesh and blood? So the Rebbe explains flesh and blood is not just the people, but it's talking about the mitzvah itself. I know mitzvahs begashmis. Why put the mitzvahs into a physical form? Even the way they are down here below are in the ultimate elevated state. Even during a sin, it was faithful to Hashem. How much more so if a Yid is in a higher level than when he's committing a sin? So that's the question of the wise son. Why do you need to have mitzvahs in a physical world to connect them with Hashem? The neshama is connected with Hashem by its very nature. 3 lines in the bottom, for 4 lines in the bottom. This comes the response. We were servants to Parim Mitzrayim, and Avaya took us out of Mitzrayim. So I should be able to be the exodus from Mitzrayim. We need a much greater drawing down from above. To be able to do that, one needs to fulfill the mitzvahs in the physical specifically. Their root is very, very high. Therefore, because the root of the mitzvahs is very high, it is able to draw us out and pull us out of how low we are, being in a low state of Mitzrayim. Let's go on to the next page, 4th page of Maimer. This is what David HaMelech Vashom, who is the pleasant one, pleasant singer of Yidden, said in the name of every single Yid. In other words, what David HaMelech says in Tehillim, he's not just saying for himself, he's saying it on behalf of Yidden. He's giving voice to our feelings and our connections with Hashem. V'alikim malkim mikedem, and Alikim, my king from early on, poil yeshuis bekerev haaretz, affects salvations within the land. The mekim should tzarech lifel yeshuis loy b'shamayim, since we need to affect salvations not in the heavens. V'gam loy ba'aretz tam lamat ma'asar tvachim, not only in the ordinary level of arts of the earth, which is lower than 10 handbreadths. Kiyim bekerev haaretz, we have to affect it within the very innards of the earth. Asher gam bekerev haaretz yumshach, even with the very innards of the earth should come down. Loirak inishal toiv stam, not only an ordinary good, kiyim ba'ifin shel Yeshua, but in the way of a salvation. How can that be done? So for that, we need to bring down a very high level. He knows that. For this, we need to have Elikim, my king from early on. The intention over here is, like it's brought down the Medrash, to a level that's way higher than the time of the effect. Let's skip over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines to the end of the brackets, where there's a little number 37 over there at the end of the brackets. Specifically from this level, the level that's Malki Mikedem, the level that's way higher than everything. It comes down that he should affect salvations within the innards of the earth, within the deepest place of the earth. Like the well-known expression, to be able to come down very, very below. He has to come down from a much higher place. In a similar vein, we find also this when the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim. Since the Amshach had to be there, from the most lowest place, Mitzrayim, Erves Aretz, Mitzrayim, which is the most immoral place of the land, of the earth. Therefore, the Amshach had to come, like we have in the Agada, Malach, not through a Malach, Sodov, not even through a Malach called a Sodov, Shliach, not even a higher level, it's called a Shliach of Hashem. That's another lashon that says in the Agada, that not even from a level that's called another. What's this other that we're negating? That's even a very, very high level. It's brought down is the level of Acher, the Alter Rebbe Torah says. So not a Malach, not a Soref, not a Shliach, and not even the level of Acher could deal with coming down so low. But rather, as it says in the Agada from Hashem, in His very glory and essence, that's the response. That's what we tell and we say, that we were servants to Pari Mitzrayim. We answer this after the Manishtana to all the children, and we say we were servants to Pari in Mitzrayim, and Hashem took us out from Mitzrayim with a strong hand. For to be able to go out of Mitzrayim, the most immoral place in the land, and a way of going out with an outstretched arm or an upraised arm, which means it's not an ordinary going out. You could run away like slaves running away. You could go out in a part of a way, not running away, but not with big pride. But Biyad Rama means that you're going out with lots of pride and that you're the winner and so on. It's similar to the other phrase that we brought before from Tehillim, that he effects salvations within the depth of the earth. Also in the depth of the earth, will be affected not just ordinary good, but in a way of a salvation. The same thing, the Yidden go out in a upraised hand, meaning in a very powerful way. So to be able to do that, for this we need to draw down from Hashem's very essence specifically. How do we draw this down? Specifically with physical mitzvahs. Because the physicality of this world comes into being only by the power of Hashem's essence, that Hashem's essence has no prior cause, and the same thing, the physical world that imagines itself not to have a prior cause is sourced in Hashem's essence that has no prior cause. Similar to what's known, why when Mashiach comes, action will be greater because of this great connection with Hashem's very essence that will become revealed, and the Hashem's essence being revealed is connected with the lowest level, with the level of action, even over Torah study. This is also the reason why in the mitzvahs there's the different types of the ceremonial mitzvahs, the super-rational mitzvahs, the rational laws. We want to draw down Hashem's essence even in this world, that this world there's different levels. So by having mitzvahs of fitting into all different types of aspects of this world, we draw down Hashem's essence into every aspect and every combination and everything that there is in this world. Last page of the Maimer. Since the main idea of the Aggadah is derived from the pasuk in our parsha that you shall relate to your son, like we said before at the beginning of the Maimer, because of the nir mazgam amayin al shaus ben achacham mash b'shvili tzis mitzrayim tzarchel mitzvah begashmis davke. Specifically in this pasuk is hinted also the response for the question of the wise son, that for the sake of Yetzias Mitzrayim you need to have mitzvahs in the physical. In the very same pasuk that he's talking about, the lowest son of the Haggadah, the one who doesn't know how to ask, is also hinted the answer about the importance of the physicality of the mitzvahs. That's why he says, for the sake of this, the matzah and the mutter, Hashem did for me when I went on Mitzrayim. For this sake, what's it mean for this sake? Through fulfilling the mitzvahs of matzah and mar in the physical. So then I can go out of Mitzrayim, because we said before, we need to draw down from Hashem's very essence to be able to pull out of Mitzrayim. That's why it says, this whole section, it says, we had the question, why is it saying that day? If that day doesn't tell you which day, Bavur Zeh tells us which day. That day doesn't tell us anything. So by Yom Ahu shows on concealment. That day, whatever day that is, it's concealed. Even when we find ourselves in a state that I will surely conceal my face in that day. That the concealment is very great. What Haster Aster means is that the very concealment is concealed, like the Baal Shem Tov teaches. In other words, you don't even realize how bad the concealment is. Despite that, even in the state that I will surely conceal my face. And that day, in such a low state, there's the avodah for this sake. That he shows and he points with his physical finger on the matzah mar, the physical mar, and he says, Bavur zeh, like the Minhag Chabad is, you put your hand on the matzah, you put your hand on the mar. The physicality is what matters over here. The idea of avodah zu the kiyam mitzvah begashmin is through this avodah of fulfilling the mitzvahs in the physical. Nasa b'tzeisim Mitzrayim is accomplished. The going out of Mitzrayim, the Kerev Ha'aretz, the depth and the lowest place we are extracted from. This is also where it says, for this sake, Hashem did for me. V'isa Medrash is brought down the Medrash Kolmak, which is never li einazaz lo'ilam. Whenever it uses the term li for me, it never moves. It's everlasting. The Mekivan Shaide avoided Bavur Zeh Nimshech Sagulim Abchinus Umekedem Ashalei Nasum. Since through the avoid Bavur Zeh comes down the redemption from the level of, like Malki Mekedem that he discussed in the brackets, from a level of early on, that's before everything was even made. He said it in the brackets that we skipped. Shalomai Lamish Kalshos beyond the whole entire chain order of descent. Lachenu Ba'ofen Deinazaz Loilam. Therefore, it's in such a manner that it will never move. It's not possible any type of changes in the redemption. You will not see them ever forever. You will not see them again forever. In a similar vein to what took place in Yetzias Mitzrayim is in the future redemption. The Kimei says, like your days going out of the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. That we will say before you a new song. In the masculine, that indicates it will be a redemption that will never be followed by exile. That's why in the night of the Seder, one has to gather all the 4 children that correspond to the 4 children that the Torah spoke about. We have to set them down in the order of Torah, meaning the Hainu Legalis, Sashaychas, Yeshmal Torah. We have to reveal within these 4 children their connection that they have with the Torah. That in each one of the 4 sons there is the Havaya Echad that's in him. Where do we see this? Like it says by each one of them, it says Echad, Echad Chacham, Echad Rasha, Echad Tom, Echad Shein De'al Lishol. In each one of the 4 children, there's the Echad of Hashem within them. We don't see it. We have to affect that the Echad that's within them should be revealed. Through that becomes a preparation for the future redemption. Like the days going out of the land of Mitzrayim, I will show you wonders. Then it will be that the glory of Hashem will become revealed, and all flesh will see together that the mouth of Hashem spoke. Everyone will point their finger. Behold, this is our God. This again is who we hope to. Out of joy and gladness of heart.